Today's lecture is going to be on cracking the code on why people keep quitting their New Year's resolutions, right? I just want to get the idea of how many people we're talking to. Looks like we've got a decent amount, all right? So welcome, and for those who don't know me, my name is Dr. Scott Jahn. I am a chiropractor from New York. I have a clinic in Business Park, Cebu in the Philippines. And I specialize in corrective care and removing nervous system interference, right? So let's get into it, right? So at the end of January 2026, right, it happened quick. It's here already. This is the last week, right? And statistically, what it shows is that 80% of people who start the New Year's resolution, they quit after only 2 weeks, right? And statistics get worse towards the end of the month, right? And now we're at the end of the month. And so statistics show that 96% of people who started a New Year's resolution have quit, right? That's pretty poor. Only 4% are keeping their New Year's resolutions from January. So the problem you may think is maybe that you failed, that you lack willpower, or maybe there's not enough time to accomplish your goals. But that's the wrong thinking, which we're going to see tonight, right? Willpower is a finite resource. Right? If you're fighting your own neuropsychobiology, you're going to lose. Simple as that, right? So here's what nobody tells you about New Year's resolutions, right? The problem's not you. It's not your willpower, your motivation, and it's not even a discipline problem. The problem is that nobody ever taught you how your nervous system actually influences and controls your behavior. Everything you want in life, every goal, every dream, every vision for yourself that you're trying to become, it all runs through one central command center. And that's your central nervous system, your brain and your spinal cord. And I'm not here to give you a pep talk. I'm here to give you a scientifically based biological blueprint that you can follow, right? So tonight, we're going to discuss why your brain is literally wired to keep you stuck and how we can use our neurobiology of human performance to ensure that these health goals aren't just met, but they're automated, right? So we did have a poll that we conducted on our social media because we wanted to see if that 96% was holding accurate. And it pretty much was. I think Erica still trying to work on our PowerPoint. Maybe it'll work. We'll see. And so, again, most people gave up, right? Well, unfortunately, right, that's the reality of things. Okay? But let's start with the real reason people quit, right? So if you had to guess, why would you think that by the time February rolls around, 96% of people have given up on their resolutions, right? Again, most people say, well, lack of motivation, or I'm just not disciplined, or I don't have time, I'm too busy. But here's what's actually happening inside your skull, right? Your brain's number one job, it's survival. It's not to make you happy or successful or even to make you healthy. It's to survive. And here's the kicker. Your brain thinks that anything new or novel equals danger, right? Think about that. For 200,000 years, our ancestors survived by doing the same thing in the same place with the same people, right? Change meant risk, and risk meant an increase in possible death, right? So your brain developed this incredible system. It's called your autonomic nervous system. And it's been running your life on autopilot your entire existence. So your autonomic nervous system is made up of two different branches. You have one called your sympathetic nervous system. That's your stress response. We call it fight or flight, right? It's your body's survival mode. The other is your parasympathetic. It's your rest, digest, and your healing mode. This is where growth and repair happens. So here's the problem. When you're stressed, whether it's mental, emotional stress, which most people associate with stress, but it can also be biochemical stress, right? Like not enough nutrients in your body, or physical stress, like sitting at a desk for 8-10 hours a day, right? Your nervous system goes into that stress survival mode, right? And in survival mode, your brain does not have any interest in your gym routine or your diet or even your meditation practice or whatever you may be trying to do, right? It seeks old comfortable patterns, right? It wants to be safe and comfortable. It wants to be familiar. And this is why we quit. All right, not because of lack of motivation or discipline, but because the nervous system is doing exactly what it's designed to do, protect you from the unknown. So the game changer here is If you want to stop quitting, all right, and you don't need more motivation, right, what you need is to teach your nervous system that the change you're trying to make is safe. So how do we do that, right? Well, let's talk about that. So the first thing we need to discuss is this molecule has been hijacking your resolutions. It's called dopamine. Most people have heard of dopamine, right? It's probably known as the happy hormone or the feel-good molecule because it drives the brain's reward system. It creates feelings of pleasure and motivation when you experience enjoyable activities like eating cookies or scrolling on your phone or achieving a goal, right? Making what you want to repeat those behaviors. Now, unfortunately, the label of the feel-good hormone is a little misleading. Dopamine is actually a critical neurotransmitter, right, in the brain for motivation, learning, mood, and movement. Dopamine's purpose is not pleasure. Dopamine drives anticipation and the pursuit of the reward and pleasure. So human behavior is hardwired to be prediction-based. The brain repeats what it can predict. When a behavior feels predictable, it feels achievable, and produces consistent feedback, that's when dopamine gets released. Your brain used to release dopamine back when we were hunting for food for days and found it, and we connected with our tribe or accomplished some difficult goal. But now with modern times, we're getting hit with dopamine every 30 seconds. Right? When we're scrolling on social media, when we're eating a lot of sugar or binging Netflix, modern life has kind of hacked our dopamine system. Right? Our brain has been flooded with this constant supply of easy, accessible dopamine, right? Almost like a drug addict. So when you're trying to do things like either go to the gym, eat healthy, or build a business, or write that book you've always dreamed of, right? That equals a delay in dopamine. And for an addict who keeps getting that fix, right, that can be difficult, right? Your brain says, well, why would I do hard things? Maybe I'll get dopamine if I do it, but I can get dopamine right now just by opening TikTok and scrolling through it, right? This is a major reason why our resolutions fail, because your nervous system has been trained to seek out immediate gratification in the form of dopamine, right? This dopamine dilemma, we call it. But here's the beautiful thing about your brain. It's what we call neuroplastic, which means it can rewire itself and it can change and learn. So that's what we're going to do, right? We're going to need to understand the rules of the game first, right? So rule number one, you can't out willpower your dopamine, right? You have to retrain your dopamine system, right? You have to, almost like a drug addict, get off that drug or wean yourself off the drug. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to do this little dopamine detox mini exercise. So it only takes 2 minutes, and I'm going to explain in the next section why we want to keep it 2 minutes, right? When you wake up in the morning, before you reach for that phone to get that instant dopamine hit as you wake up, what I want you to do is sit in the chair. You're going to sit tall with a straight spine. Try and unclench your jaw, let your shoulders drop. We're going to do an inhale through your nose for 4 seconds. Then you're going to exhale. You can do it through your mouth, but preferably through your nose for 6 seconds, right? The key is the exhale is longer than the inhale. You repeat this 4 or 5 cycles. That longer exhale is going to stimulate a nerve called your vagus nerve, which is your parasympathetic nerve. We'll go into a little bit more of that in a minute. And that's going to lower that sympathetic fight or flight drive and that dopamine firing. So that's going to help reduce that stress and that craving, all right? After you do the 4 or 5 cycles, you're going to close your eyes, keep your body still, let the urge to move, to check your phone, to think, or to do other things pass without reacting to it. This is critical because that urge surfing retrains the brain to tolerate low stimulation without seeking a reward. Then silently ask yourself, what's the single useful thing I will do next? This re-engages that prefrontal cortex, the executive part of the brain, and restores the executive control over impulsive dopamine loops, right? So again, you're not feeding that addiction. Now this works, it sounds simple, but it works, right? And it works because the constant stimulation keeps the baseline dopamine high, right? Which reduces our motivation, which reduces our focus, and also our satisfaction. So right? Remember, dopamine is not about anticipation. It's about, it's about anticipation, not pleasure, right? So short, controlled stillness resets the sensitivity without withdrawal or fatigue, right? 2 minutes is enough, right, to interrupt that dopamine loop. All right, so you can use this exercise, right, either before something that requires a lot of focus, when you feel restless and unmotivated, like if you want to go to the gym, I just don't feel like I want to do my exercise. You can do it also after you've been scrolling on social media, again, to kind of reset that dopamine. Or you can use it before making important decisions, right? Because we want to get that executive function of the brain to activate. And we'll see why that's important in a minute. Okay? So this will lower your baseline dopamine stimulation and calm the limbic system and restore your prefrontal control and resensitize the reward pathway. Right? It's not about deprivation. It's about nervous system recalibration. So hopefully you guys are willing to try this. All right. This one simple tool. I got a few others for you. Okay. But this one is going to change your nervous system and the relationship with dopamine. Right. I promise you, just try it. Right. It's our first step to trying to create a system towards making our habits automatic. Okay. So next thing we're going to talk about is identity. Right. Let's talk about identity as far as we get into this kind of deeper subject, right? The stuff that separates people who actually change from the people who simply just want to change is your identity, right? Before behavior, before habits or tactics, there's identity. And there's a neurological truth, and that is your brain does not care about your goals, right? Your brain doesn't care about who you, your brain cares about who you believe you are, right? Behavior always obeys identity. And resistance to anything we're trying to do, right? It's not laziness. What it is it's a protective mechanism because your brain is protecting your identity, okay? So if a behavior feels like it's threatening to who you believe you are, resistance is going to show up automatically. Right? The nervous system is fiercely protective of a self-concept. When you set a goal, you're trying to achieve an outcome, right? I want to lose weight. I don't want to eat late at night the cookies, right? That's just a goal or a wish, right? But when you shift your identity, right, your actions will reinforce the type of person that you are. And your identity lives in your subconscious mind, right? It's controlled by your central nervous system again, right? And your subconscious is 95% of the brain's processing power. Right? Behavior that aligns with identity will require less effort, less energy, and less stress, which translates into safety and security. So if your subconscious identity is, I'm someone who always quits things, I'm stupid, I'm fat, I'm just not good at math, right? I have no willpower or discipline, I don't have time, right? Guess what's going to happen? Your nervous system will unconsciously preserve that identity and resist any behavior that conflicts with your self-concept. Right? That nervous system prefers coherence over improvement of any kind. But if your subconscious identity becomes, I'm someone who honors commitments to myself, I'm someone who values my health, I'm consistently improving, right? Then your behavior changes automatically, right? To, again, reinforce that new identity. So here's our second little exercise, right? We're going to create a new identity. Or technically, it's not creating a new identity. It's rediscovering our identity that maybe is buried below that destructive talk that we always tell ourselves. So the first thing we want to do is define the identity, right? Not what you want to do, but who you want to be, right? I want to be a healthy person. I want to be a person who has a good physique. I'm always thinking health-based because, I mean, that's kind of the world I live in, right? I want to be an author, or whatever the case may be, right? Next, you're going to collect evidence. You're going to sit down and list 10 things where you're already proven the capabilities. Right? So, for example, if I'm making it about health, right, my identity is I make health a priority. Right? So, look in my life. Where is it where I'm already making health a priority? Well, I brush my teeth every day. Right? That's oral hygiene. I shower regularly. Right? Again, hygiene. I take my vitamins. I try to avoid sugar, right? I get 8 hours of sleep. I drink a lot of water when I can, right? And you start to look at evidence that's saying, okay, well, there's a lot of places where that is my identity, and that proves that, that I do value my health. The rules are this. They have to be, number one, observable. They have to be something that's repeatable, something that you're doing on a regular basis. And they have to be already happening, right? We can't introduce a new, kind of something to do, right? I'm gonna brush my teeth if you've never brushed them before, okay? So you don't need to become someone new. You just need to recognize who you already are and let that identity expand, right? Again, it's not motivation. This is an identity repair exercise. When we rebuild identity from proof, behavior starts requiring force and energy, right? It's an immediate lowering of the resistance. Your brain believes what it sees repeatedly, okay? So once we've come up with that list, now we're going to anchor it. So for each item, you're going to say, all right, people who don't prioritize their health don't do these things consistently. I do. Then you're going to collapse those into one sentence of, if I do these things automatically, that shows who I am. Right? This shifts your brain from being task-oriented to being identity-based. Now, once you got that, you're going to neurologically lock it in. Now, this part's important. You're going to, again, find a chair, sit upright. You want a straight spine because you want to minimize the amount of physical stress on your nervous system. You're going to do a breathing exercise again. You're going to breathe in through your nose, then slowly exhale. Remember, the exhale should be longer than the inhale so we can stimulate the vagus nerve, that parasympathetic part, the healing, the repair, the digestion part, okay? Then you're going to read that list out loud. And after the list, you're going to say slowly to yourself, or say it out loud, it would be better, right? That these behaviors aren't effort. They're automatic. And that's because this is who I am, right? Speaking actually engages the motor cortex, the auditory cortex, and the limbic system, which is the memory part, right? That's how beliefs start to stabilize. Now, here's your homework, right? I want you to say this identity statement out loud every morning for the next 7 days. Okay? You're going to make it the first thing you say when you wake up. And as a bonus, if you want, make it the last thing you do before you go to sleep. You're going to watch what happens, right? This is going to start shifting your identity, and your brain's going to start recognizing where you're reinforcing this identity. Now, how do we bridge this new behavior? Okay, so we're going to extend this identity forward. You're going to ask the question, well, if this is who I already am, what would the next 5% look like? Okay. So if we take our health example, well, I may go for a 10-minute walk or stretch at night, or in my case, would say remove your nerve interference instead of ignoring it. Right? We want to remove that stress so the body can do these things. Okay, you're not becoming someone new. You're actually acting in alignment with someone you already are. And that removes the friction and resistance. Okay, so you're going to create small wins that prove this newfound identity. You want to make these actions so small that it's almost impossible not to do them, right? They should be embarrassingly small. We have a 2-minute rule, right? If the habit takes longer than 2 minutes, right, don't do it, right? But find a new habit or chop it down so it's a 2-minute habit, right? Because we don't want to prove to the brain that we're going to quit, right? We want to do the activity, right? So you're going to design a habit that can't fail. You're going to say, after I blank, I will blank for 2 minutes, right? This is called the habit loop, which we'll talk about in 1 minute, right? So every action that you do that reinforces this is proving to your brain to realize this new identity that we've just uncovered, right? Now this works because the brain resists identities that feel false and accepts identities that are already evident, right? This exercise restores what we call coherence in the brain. Now, this habit loop hijack, okay? So now that we've covered the why you quit, let's talk about how to actually build habits that stick. Okay, we're going to do what's called a habit loop. Okay, everything you do repeatedly follows a 3-part loop. Number 1, there's the cue or the trigger. Number 2, there's the routine or the behavior. And then number 3, the reward, right? The payoff that we get. Now, most people, when they're trying to come up with a New Year's resolution, they kind of skip the cue and the reward, right? That doesn't work. You say, well, if you don't want to eat junk food at night, you say, well, I'm not going to eat junk food. Right? That's not a strategy, right? That's a hope or a wish. The strategy would be this. You can identify the cue, right? What triggers the behavior? So maybe it's always at 9 o'clock I get that urge, right? A time based, or always when I'm stressed, right? I'm an emotional eater, or maybe it's when I get bored, right? It's some kind of state that you're in, or possibly it's seeing the pantry. I know my cookies are in the pantry, right? And that triggers it. So you're also going to have to identify the reward. What are you really getting, right? Is it comfort? Is it a distraction? Is it a quick burst of energy? Or is it a dopamine hit, right? Once you got that, now you're going to replace the routine, right? That middle part of the sandwich. Find a new behavior that addresses the same cue and provides a similar reward. So for example, we're going to say the cue, all right, 9 p.m., I feel stressed. The old routine was go get some chips and start eating. And then the reward, right? Comfort and distraction. So maybe we take the old routine of eating chips when we feel it's 9 p.m. we're feeling stressed, and we put in a new 2-minute routine, right, of a breathing exercise that we just taught you, and maybe some herbal tea, right? And then we'll have the same reward, comfort and distraction. Again, your new habits should be less than 2 minutes to start, okay? Not, I'm going to work out for an hour. Instead, maybe just put on my gym clothes and do 10 or 20 crunches, right? Instead of, I'm going to prepare my meal so that I can eat healthy throughout the week, right? Too much to start. Instead, I'm just going to chop a few vegetables and put them in a Ziploc bag. Or instead of meditating for 20 minutes, we're going to do these breathing exercises that I just taught you. So why? This is because your nervous system needs to learn that change is safe, right? It's non-threatening. When behavior is inconsistent, it's too demanding, it's an all or nothing, the brain withdraws the motivation, right? This is why small habits beat a big plan. Consistency builds prediction, and prediction builds trust, and then trust builds the habit. So once you built that 2-minute version where your brain stops resisting, then it's time to scale up. That's when you expand your goals. So let's build a habit loop right now for one of our goals, okay? So think about one of your health goals. Maybe it doesn't have to be health, but again, we're health oriented here, okay? Now answer these questions. What's one tiny action that takes 2 minutes or less that can move me towards that goal? What's one existing habit that you can attach to it, right? What's your cue? And then how will you celebrate afterwards? What's the reward? So if my goal is to get healthier, we'll say, just a general goal, right? What action can I take? Well, I can drink a glass of water, okay? So what's my cue? Well, my cue is, I brush my teeth every morning. So, okay, after I brush my teeth, I can drink a glass of water. Very easy to do, almost embarrassing if I don't do it. And then what's the celebration, right? What's the reward? Okay, I can say, well, I am making my health a priority, right? I'm reinforcing that identity that we just talked about. Okay. Next, let's talk about stress. Stress is one of the most common overlooked factors, right? So one thing that will destroy every resolution, every habit, every good intention you have, right? Chronic stress, I'm not just talking about mental emotional stress, remember, right? Stress comes in various forms. It can be physical stress, right? If we're sitting at a chair at our desk for 8-10 hours a day or sitting in traffic, or it can be a biochemical stress. If you're exposed to environmental toxins, like if you live in a city like I do, or if you're not getting enough good nutrition, that's a stress as well. So we want to think of all different kinds of stress, all right? So here's what most people don't understand. You can have the perfect plan, the perfect habit, and the perfect mindset. But if your nervous system is stuck in that fight or flight survival mode, it's not going to work, right? When you're stressed, your prefrontal cortex, that part of that brain that's responsible for the executive function, it shuts down. Right? Stress will shift control from a reflective action to reactive circuitry, right? And cortisol starts to tell your brain, we're in danger. Shut everything down except survival. So what's going to shut down? Well, your willpower motivation, that's the first thing that shuts down, right? It's going to take energy away from that and shunt it towards survival. Your decision-making goes down. Part of the brain that's responsible for threat detection, fear, and aggression becomes hyper-reactive, called your amygdala, right? So you'll see people get agitated a lot. Your impulse control, that goes down, right? That's a prefrontal cortex responsibility. Your ability to think long-term, right? Stress increases decision fatigue. And this allows old patterns to reemerge, right? The brain's going to go to what's familiar, our old bad habits. When we're overstressed, we overwhelm the regulation of our digestive system, right? Our immune system. The healing capacity goes down. Our sleep becomes poor, so we get tired all the time. Our blood sugar regulation decreases, right? Which all piles on to more stress. Each one of these kind of snowballs into more and more stress on the body, right? And this is why we make bad decisions when we're stressed, right? Quitting, it's not a problem with willpower. It's a physiological certainty, right? Not because we're weak, but because the nervous system is running programs designed for life or death situations, not health, right? When we regulate the body first, better decisions will just follow automatically, right? You can't habit stack your way out of a dysregulated nervous system or do a dopamine detox if you're stressed all the time, right? And the identity shift is great, but not if we're stuck in a fight or flight constantly, right? The body's going to protect itself. First, you have to regulate your nervous system. So I'm going to teach you a little tool, right? We're going to do this together right now. This is one of the most powerful tools you can have to immediately change your nervous system regulation. Okay, this technique was discovered by Stanford neuroscientists, right? It's the fastest way to shift your sympathetic fight or flight stress response to a parasympathetic calming nervous system activation. Okay, here's how it works. You're going to take one nice, slow, deep breath in, followed by a quick sip in. So it'll sound like this. Okay, and then you're going to take a long, slow exhale out through your mouth. And again, make your exhale longer than the inhale. It's similar to the other one I taught you, except that we have a little extra at the end of our inhale, and then a long, slow exhale. Okay, so if you do 3 rounds, right, let's do it right now together. We can see how we feel, okay? So nice deep breath. That was 1. That was 2. And that was 3, right? You can see it took less than 30 seconds. Now, you may notice some differences in your muscle tension. Maybe your jaw unclenched, right? Or maybe you don't feel quite as nervous, right? That's the shift that your vagus nerve is being activated. Your parasympathetic nervous system is coming online, right? This is what regulation feels like. And here's the thing. When your nervous system is regulated, everything gets easier. Your habits stick. Your impulse control and decision-making improve, right? Your cravings decrease, your energy increases, sleep improves, and your healing accelerates. But here's what I want you to understand. That breathing exercise, right? It's a Band-Aid. It's a beautiful Band-Aid, but it's just a Band-Aid, right? If we want lasting change, right? If we want to stop that cycle of starting, quitting, lack of motivation, right? The impulse control gone, right? If you want your resolutions to actually stick, right? You need to know the state of your nervous system. Because here's what most people won't tell you is that your spinal cord, it's the highway of your nervous system, right? And your spine, well, that's a suit of armor that's protecting that delicate information highway. Every message from your brain to your body, it travels through that spinal cord. And every signal about stress, healing, digestion, sleep, energy, it all goes through that spine. And when there's interference in that system, when there's stress, misalignment, or dysfunction in your spine, your nervous system can't function optimally. It's like trying to stream a movie with bad Wi-Fi, right? The message is there, but it's just not getting through clear enough. And this is why people feel stuck, right? They're doing all the right things, the habits, the mindset work, the exercise, the nutrition, but their nervous system's operating at 60% capacity. And you can't reach 100% of your potential with only 60% of your nervous system that's online. This is exactly why we focus on removing nerve interference at my clinic first, and not just pain reduction, right? You don't just adjust your spine. We evaluate and optimize your nervous system so that everything else that you're doing, all the habits, all the changes, the resolutions, they can actually work, right? Because your nervous system, when it's clear, when there's communication, the highway opens, right? Your body knows how to heal. Your brain knows how to regulate things. And your habits, they become automatic, right? Energy starts returning and your stress decreases, right? And then change becomes effortless instead of exhausting. So let's talk about the path forward. All right, let's bring it all together. Okay, so now we understand why we quit, right? The nervous system sees change as danger, right? When we talked about that dopamine addiction, right? How your brain hijacks your easy reward system, right? We talked about making the identity shift, how to become what you believe you are. And then how we do it with the habit loop, right? Small actions attached to cues that create lasting change starting at 2 minutes, right? And then lastly, we talked about making sure we get rid of that stress factor, right? You can't out-habit a dysregulated nervous system, right? It's fighting an uphill battle. So here's what I want to offer you, okay? Because you guys showed up on this webinar, right? Because you were patient with us, we had some technical problems, right? I know you guys are serious about change and serious about stopping the cycle. All right, I want to give you something that nobody else in the community is offering. A comprehensive nervous system evaluation at my clinic, Form and Function Corrective Chiropractic, right? It's not a regular checkup. It's a deep dive into how well your nervous system is functioning, where there might be interference, what's keeping you stuck in stress patterns, how to optimize your body's ability to heal and adapt, all right? And the best part, everybody that's on this webinar, all right, we're recording this and we're going to post it later, so that's not for those people. It's only for the people that checked in today and are on this webinar. It's complimentary at no cost to you. Zero, right? I'm going to shoulder 100% of the expense. All you have to do is type your name in the contact information. Either you can use social media, Facebook, Google, Facebook, Instagram, something like that, or a phone number. And I'm going to have one of my staff reach out to you. Okay, and we'll set you up. Because here's what I know to be true, right? You can do everything we talked about, right? The habits, identity work, all that stuff, and see some results. Or we can clear and optimize your nervous system, and we can make this exponentially better for you, okay? So the choice is yours, but I'm telling you as someone who's worked with thousands of people changing their lives, right? The ones who succeed, they always start with clearing their nervous system first, right? Because it makes things so much easier. So if you're ready to stop quitting and become the person that you know you can be, right? If you're ready to feel what it's like when your body's working with you instead of against you, right? Just drop a note, right, with the contact information, and I'll have my team reach out and schedule you. All right. So before we close, I want to leave you with this, right? You are not broken, right? God created you to be perfect. Right? If there's anything that's going on that you're not liking, whether it's a mental, emotional issue of depression or not sticking to your goals, right? It's not because you're broken. It's because you're dysregulated, right? Your willpower or discipline is not weak, right? Your past failures don't define you, right? They're not permanent. You're a biological machine designed for adaptation. Every single day, your body's trying to heal. It's trying to grow. You're trying to become stronger, right? Your job isn't to force change. Your job is to remove the interference and give your nervous system what it needs to do what it was designed to do. And when you do that, right, when you regulate your nervous system, when you shift your identity, when you build your habits and you optimize your biology, right, you don't just keep your resolutions, right? You become unrecognizable. You become the person who shows up for themselves, who honors their commitments, who honors the gift that God gave them, right? You live with energy and purpose, right? And you inspire those around you to do the same, right? That person, they're not someone in the future. That's you right now, right? We just have to come up with a plan, and now we've got one, right, on how to implement that, right? So if you're just waiting for a clear path, now you have one, okay? So here's my challenge to you. Don't wait until next January in 2027 to become the person that you are meant to be, right? Start today. Start with that one breath, right? Start with one choice. Start with getting your nervous system evaluated and cleared, because the world needs the healthiest, most vibrant, most fully expressed version of you, right? And I'm here to help you become that person. So I want to thank you guys all for being here, and thank you for showing up. And thank you for being brave enough to want more out of your life. All right? Now go out and become unstoppable. Thank you very much. Do me a favor and follow me on social media, okay? Because we are going to have a giveaway, okay? We're going to be giving away some nice green juice, some Sente barley, right? It's a nutritious, rich barley grass supplement that supports general wellness, digestion, and natural energy. Okay, so everybody who's been on the webinar tonight, we're gonna have that giveaway. We'll announce it tomorrow on our social media. So follow us. All our contact info is on there somewhere. It's that form function chiropractic or something. Look at the bottom of the screen. I think it's on there somewhere. Again, I'm not technically savvy, as you can tell from the first 15 minutes of this talk. All righty. I hope you guys got a lot of value out of this. Again, when you follow us on social media, we're going to have our next webinar at the end of February. I think we're going to be doing that on TMJ dysfunction. Okay, right. It'll be a value-packed, full of good stuff for them there. All right. We also provide daily tips on a regular basis. And we do some giveaways and some raffles, just like we're doing this giveaway for the barley. All right, guys, thank you. And I'll see you at the next one. Take care.